Francisco. The historic Gold Rush destination is where these players will try to stake their claim on nearly $500,000.
The Gold Rush is on. The World Poker Tour strikes it rich in San Francisco.
The World Poker Tour travels the globe, featuring some of the biggest games and largest payouts of all time. Tonight, we're in Colma, California, near San Francisco at the Lucky Chances Casino for the 5th stop in this high-stakes journey around the world. You'll see top poker players and some very fortunate amateurs fighting for their share of a prize pool approaching $500,000. The buy-in here is $3,000. More than 150 poker players took up the challenge, knowing that only 6 would make it to the WPT final table. Tonight's winner will also earn a spot in the WPT Championship at the end of the year. There, they'll face off against 11 other title holders and anyone else willing to put up $25 grand for millions in prize money. Now, down to the WPT Arena, where poker champion Mike Sexton and Hollywood poker expert Vince Van Patten are standing by.
Welcome, everyone. We're at Lucky Chances Casino in the San Francisco Bay Area. Thanks for joining us for the finals of the No Limit Hold'em Championship event at the Gold Rush Poker Tournament.
Absolutely, Mike. Now, this is such a beautiful city. And you know, 100 years ago, it was wide open. This was the Las Vegas of the country.
Director Matt Savage is about to get him underway.
Please shuffle up and deal. Good luck, everybody.
So let's go over the players that made the final 6. The first player is a great player, very crafty. His name is Paul Darden. He's from Connecticut. He's a 7-card stud player usually, but he's in first place and he has $470,000 worth of chips.
In second chip position today, we have former world champion Phil Hellmuth. He has $433,000 in chips.
Exactly. Now, third place is a guy we've seen on the World Poker Tour before. His name is Chris Bigler. He is from Switzerland. He's a very solid, very tight player. He has $276,000 worth of chips.
In fourth place is Vince Bergio, a solid professional, longtime pro. Vince is starting today with $156,000 in chips.
Tommy Garza is our 5th man, kind of a low stack. He has about $103,000.
And last but not least,
Antonio Esfandiari.
Now, Antonio is a magician by trade, and he's going to have to pull some magic today because he's starting in last chip position with $71,000 in chips. Well, action's about to get underway. What's exciting about the World Poker Tour events is that we can see these players' cards. You get to see what they're playing when they start, what they're raising back with, what they're coming into the pot with. This is exciting to watch.
Absolutely, Mike.
The action is going to be on Antonio. He'll be the first one to speak.
Now, what you ultimately want when you're playing Hold'em is 2 aces, 2 kings. That would be an ideal hand. Rarely happens.
And look at this. Antonio has picked up an ace-3 offsuit. Not a great hand.
Raise.
He says he's raising the first pot, so he's called the 12, and now he's going to make a raise. And here he goes. He's put in a total of $53,000 in this pot. And look at Tommy Garza. He's got ace-jack.
Look at it, he's throwing it away.
Actually, he throws that hand away. Paul Darden, we see he's got the king-4 of diamonds.
Not a horrible starting hand. That's pretty interesting, but he's throwing it away, too.
Chris Bigler has a king-deuce offsuit. He will not play. Vince Bergio has an ace-8. He mucked his hand.
Phil Hellmuth giving a good look here. Now, Phil's that kind of player. He likes to ask people how much you got left. He wants to detect tells. And now he's throwing it away.
He showed an ace and threw it away, I might add.
Sure.
Antonio picks up the first pot, and we're underway.
Big smile by Antonio. Well done. It goes to show you have to play aggressive at the World Poker Tour.
I can't wait to play with him. You have to think you're the best if you're a poker player.
Who's gonna double me up, baby?
Every poker player you'll talk to thinks that they're the best.
For those of you that are new to the game, we've got a quick tutorial on how to play Texas Hold'em. The game is No Limit Hold'em, the Cadillac of poker. It's a game that takes a minute to learn and a lifetime to master. To start, each player is dealt 2 cards face down. Then, 5 community cards, cards everyone can play, are placed face up on the table. Each player combines their 2 hidden down cards with the community cards to make their best 5-card poker hand.
And betting is really what this game is all about. Let me explain. You get your first 2 cards, you make a bet. Then the dealer puts the first 3 community cards on the table. In poker, we call this the flop. They bet again. Then the dealer puts the 4th community card on the table. This is called the turn card. Once again, big round of betting. Then the last card. We call this the river. It's turned up on the table. They make a big last round of betting. Turn your cards over. You see who wins.
They call it no limit hold'em because there's no limit on how much a player can bet. At any moment, he can declare that he is all in and push all of his chips into the pot.
Right, and that makes chip position, or how many chips you have, very, very important in this game.
Paul Darden will be the first to act in this hand.
You talk about psychology here. Paul Darden is the chip leader, has a lot of chips. He doesn't have to get involved. Doesn't have a very good hand there. He's throwing it away.
And the 3-8 of diamonds, he throws it away. Chris throws his hand away, a 9-5 offsuit, not a good hand. Vince quickly folds his king-6 offsuit, and now Phil, on the dealer button, is holding a 9 and a 10, but Phil's a very aggressive player on the button. Let's see what he does. Yes, he's reaching for chips.
You talk about that button, that is a good place to be.
It's the most favorable position at the table because you get to act last on hands. That's why.
Phil Helmuth announced raise.
And Phil does indeed raise the pot. 27,000.
Antonio just threw his hand away. Tommy's got a big hand here. He's got wired queens. That means 2 queens in the hole. This is beautiful for him. Look at him thinking. He's got him in a perfect place. That's probably the 3rd best starting hand. This is very exciting for him. He's thinking about how he's going to play this back at Phil.
And look, he's milking this. Look how he's playing it, Vince. He's just sitting back. He looks calm and collected and like he's wondering what to do. We know, in fact, he's going to raise. It's just a matter of how he's going to play these 2 queens. He's certainly going to play the pot.
Look at Phil smiling at him, thinking that he has him.
Phil's smiling at him, but Phil's not going to like it if he plays back at him.
Here he goes. He's making a nice solid raise.
Now look at Phil's face. All of a sudden his smile went to deep concern, if you notice.
I think his beard got a little gray there. He's disgusted.
Now, Phil's the kind of player that likes to be what we call the table captain. He likes to take command. He likes to raise all the pots. He likes to push other people around at the table. And when people raise him back, when they play over the top of him, he becomes frustrated. So let's see if that's going to be a trend today. And he folded his hand.
Oh, yeah.
So, let's take a look at our current leaderboard. Remember now, we play until someone wins all the chips on the table. There's no walking away. The last person standing takes the first prize and the coveted seat in the World Poker Tour Championship event at Bellagio at the end of the season.
Well, here they go.
Chris Bigler, the action's on him. He folds ace-4 offsuit. Vince folds the 3-deuce offsuit, and Phil folds his jack-9 offsuit. And now the action's on Antonio. He's in favorable position. He's going to raise this pot. He's got king-3 offsuit.
Okay, a little poker lesson there. You got king-3. It's not that great of a hand, but you're in a great position, and you got to gamble. And that's what he's doing, and that's what you're seeing.
Remember, he's the short stack. He's only got 74,000 in chips, meaning if he didn't play a hand for 2 rounds, he's out of the tournament.
Tommy Garza, 7-jack, threw his hand away. But now what's interesting is Paul Darden, the chip leader, has an ace-10, and that's a pretty darn good hand in poker. The choice he's going to make right now is he going to challenge Antonio's possible bluff right now?
No callers.
And he doesn't. He folds his hand, and notice he didn't show the cards. He didn't want to give any information to the other players that he might be throwing away pretty big hands. He doesn't want them to try to take advantage of him and raise him.
I am a tiger on the table. I want all the chips. There's no friends, no love lost. I want you out.
Okay, the action's on Vince Burgio.
Look at this. Oh, he's throwing a pair of 4s away.
Now that's interesting to the viewers out there because most people like to play pairs. Notice in early position, Vince opted to fold the small pair, threw the 4s away. And here comes Antonio. He's going to raise. He's got 2 6s. He's got a big hand here. He's making a healthy raise with him, too. Look at this. He's put 82,000 in the pot.
There he goes again.
Now, on the dealer button, we have Tommy Garza, who has a pair of 10s. Oh. Now, this is a big hand for Tommy Garza.
Tommy has a real hand, and I'd be surprised if he doesn't at least call this hand.
You've seen how aggressive Antonio's been so far.
Absolutely.
This is the beauty of the World Poker Tour events. We know these cards. We know Antonio's got 2 6s. He's got 2 10s.
Look at this. He's throwing it away.
And he threw away the 2 10s. Now, that is a big laydown. Well, Paul has the 4 deuce of clubs, so he's going to throw his hand away.
Now look at Chris Bigler. He's actually considering this hand. He has an ace in his hand and not much more, but he's thinking about it.
Well, Chris is an experienced player. He sees when a guy's just raising every pot. He knows a man doesn't have every hand. And Chris folds the ace high. So again, Antonio's won a pot when he didn't have the best hand.
Look at this guy, Mr. Aggressive, taking the chips once again, bluffing a lot.
There's plenty of poker to come. We're just getting started here in Colma, California. We'll be right back on the World Poker Tour.
Is he bluffing? I think he's trying to bluff me here. I bet that ace hit. What is he thinking? What is he trying? When the ace came off on 4th Street, he played with his chips. 13 to 1, 12 to 1, 16 to 4 to 1, 8 to 2. Makes my 2 pair good unless I'm drawing dead. I like my chances. I'm all in. We play at FullTiltPoker.com.
Welcome back to the World Poker Tour. We're at the Lucky Chances Casino for the Lucky Chances Gold Rush. The young magician Antonio is weaving a spell over the final table. Can he continue his run, or will this tough field make the magician disappear?
Welcome back to the finals of the Lucky Chances Gold Rush Poker Tournament. So far, Vince has been the short stack that's made all the noise.
I know it. The professional magician Antonio Esfandiari, the rookie, first time at a final table, is really making a move here.
Well, let's get back to the action and go to the final table.
Phil Hellmuth hasn't been able to do too much, has to act first. He throws his hand away, a little smile.
Phil didn't have anything.
Now look at this.
3 deuce offsuit. Here comes Antonio. He's going to raise again. This time he has a hand. He has ace queen offsuit.
That's a pretty solid hand.
Here he comes. He's come in for 89,000 total. So it's 89,000 now to Tommy.
That's about the whole thing, isn't it?
Tommy with not much of a hand. I don't see how he can call this.
He throws his hand away. Over to Paul. Well, now Paul's got queen jack offsuit. It's not a bad hand, but it's not the kind of hand that you're going to call 89,000 with. He mucks his hand. Chris picks up a king 8 offsuit. He's not going to play that hand.
Nah, he's way too solid to play that kind of hand.
And Vince has an ace 6 offsuit. It is an ace high, but Vince is not going to play that either. Antonio picks up another pot.
There he is.
Look at him.
Celebrating, Mr. Lucky.
It looks like things are really going Antonio's way. He's on a rush.
Yeah, he sure is.
To find out why we say that, let's check in with Shauna Hyatt.
Really? Even poker players find the need for speed. Find out why on this edition of the WPT Poker Corner. Ever heard of the phrase, be quick, but don't hurry? Don't tell a poker player that, because in a rush is exactly where they want to be.
A poker player's on a rush when he wins a bunch of hands in a row.
Your face hurts. This side and this side, you're getting slapped in the face with the cards. And after a while, you win every single hand.
Because you're reading people well, you're making the right moves. It's a beautiful place to be.
And if you're on a roll, the other players know they have 2 options. Get out of the way or get run over.
It's true that people will react to a rush.
They're fearful of you. Psychologically, they're kind of beaten down by you.
But all good things must come to an end. And even the mightiest run can come to a screeching halt.
So if you've caught a rush, hang on to it, because you might just have to hurry up and wait for the next one to come along.
Okay, thanks, Shauna. We'll keep an eye out for players who get on a rush, and a player who would like to is Phil Hellmuth.
Phil has been quieted down today.
And Phil looks down at an 8-9 offsuit. He throws his hand away in first position. Antonio with a 7 deuce folds his hand.
Phil and Antonio.
Tommy mucks his hand. Paul with 9-5 offsuit on the button throws his hand away. Let's see what Chris does. Now Chris has a 7-8. So he calls. And Vince knocks the table. We check. So we're going to see our first flop here.
Small blind.
The flop is Jack 10-7. Oh my goodness! Remember Phil mucked that 8-9 offsuit.
Look at him. Look at him. He's absolutely sick. He threw that hand away.
Okay, now Chris, who's flopped the bottom pair in a gut shot straight draw, has bet 30,000. And Vince, who has the top pair in a gut shot straight draw, look at Vince. He's going for all his chips. Vince has moved in for $125,000. He is not going to give Chris the chance to outdraw him for free here. He's moved in for $125,000.
Chris is throwing it away.
Chris mucks his hand. So Vince Burgio wins his first pot of the day. He played it very well. He came back over the top.
My father was a poker player, and I used to sit behind him and watch. I've actually been playing a lot of years.
Actions on Tommy Garza.
Tommy's played very conservative so far, Vince. He laid down those two big hands against Antonio. Both times he had him dominated, as we say. Now this time he looks down, he finds a 6-deuce offsuit, so that's not going to turn him on.
Tommy, maybe he's kicking himself for not playing those 10s earlier.
Paul Darden folds his hand. And Chris Bigler with the deuce-7 offsuit. Vince, the worst hand in poker, folds.
Chris does fold.
And Vince is on the button with ace high.
Yeah, he's in that great position again, like we were talking about, with an ace, and yet he's deciding, no, I'm not going to take a chance this time.
He opted to throw the hand away, and here comes Phil. Phil has raised 20,000 with a 7-10 of spade, a sort of unique hand.
You know, he hasn't played many hands today, and he has to take a chance. He's doing a little semi-bluff here.
And look at Antonio now. Antonio's holding the Jack-8 of hearts.
Well, they both have sneaky hands, you know, both suited, interesting hands.
He's calling. We're going to have a flop here. We have Phil with the 7-10 of spade, Antonio with the Jack-8 of hearts.
Who's going to get lucky here?
And here comes the flop. It comes Jack-9-5. Now, Phil has flopped a belly buster straight draw and a backdoor spade flush draw. Look, Phil glances over at Antonio. Look at Antonio glare at him with lasers. So if Phil was thinking about betting, he did not bet. And Antonio says, I'm all in.
He's going all in.
Look at this. Now, Phil gets up. He walks away. Now, Phil doesn't have much of a hand, but I'm sure he's frustrated to see the guys moving in on him.
Says, all my chips, I'm all in.
Phil mucks his gut shot straight draw. Antonio wins the pot again. And Phil is not in command of this game.
He's aggravated here because, you know, I'm Phil Hellmuth. I'm the best poker player at this table, but this guy just outplayed him.
In the meantime, after that pot, let's do a quick chip count. Paul is still our chip leader with 505,000, but the rest of them are all fairly close now. Phil has dropped down to 287. Antonio has come up now to third place. He's got 220,000 in chips. Vince 187,000. Chris has 165,000, and Tommy has 145,000. Okay, Paul Darden, our chip leader, will be the first to speak here. The action is on him.
He doesn't have too much of a hand, Mike. He has the ace-7.
That's pretty interesting. He's raising in first position with ace-7 offsuit, not a real strong hand. And let's see if they're going to play with him.
Good looking at his hand.
And Chris folds his hand. He's got 8-queen offsuit. Notice Vince folded ace-7 offsuit, the exact same hand that Paul raised with. Phil had 9-6 offsuit and folds. And now look at Antonio.
Well, it's pretty amazing. He's got big slick. He's got a huge starting hand. Ace-king offsuit. This is going to be trouble for Paul because he didn't expect this guy to have such a big hand. He's got to at least call it, wouldn't you think, Mike?
I do think he's going to call it. It's 80-some thousand to him. He's sitting on 256,000. I'll be surprised, in fact, if he doesn't raise the pot.
Paul, why are you doing this to me?
He's reaching for all his chips. Vince, look.
He's going to put it all in. He's going all in with the ace-king.
He has done it.
Paul Darden is saying, whoops, I think I just made a major mistake. Look at Tommy, though. Now, Tommy has picked up a hand, too. He has a decent pair of 7s. What's he going to do? Can he stay in this pot, Mike?
I can't see that he can call this hand because the pot's been raised and re-raised. It's not like he's playing against one player here. He's up against two players, and 2 7s is not that big a hand against a raise and a re-raise.
So you're right. He's throwing his hand away. Now, Paul with just ace-7, looking over and just knows right now he made a mistake. Yeah, and of course he's going to throw it away.
I can't see Paul calling another 171,000. Nah. Antonio picks up another pot. What's interesting, Vince, is the players have yet to see one of his hands. Now, we see it on television here, and we know he's raising all these pots, but these guys have no idea what he has. The action will be on Vince Burgio. And Vince has a weak hand. It's an 8-3 suited, and he folds.
Now, looky here. Big Phil Hellmuth has finally caught a pair. A real pair of jacks, and he's going to raise it.
He puts 40,000 out there. Antonio folds. Tommy doesn't have a hand. He folds. Paul has a queen 4. He folds.
But Phil is so excited he might win this pot. Just with this one raise, a pair of jacks, feeling comfortable. He's going to get Chris Bigler out. Yeah.
He hasn't won a pot yet.
A big smile, like, look at Phil showing his hand. He's showing the pair of jacks.
Good hand. My first hand. Yeah.
It's the first pot he's won today, Vince, so he's feeling a little bit better now because he finally won one, but it took him a long time to do it.
I do tend to know what other people have. I do tend to understand what they're doing.
Raise it on up.
And if you know what the other person has in poker, you basically can't lose.
And this time Phil has king 4. He's the first to act. He folds his hand. Antonio folds a 5-3. And here goes Tommy Garza. Now Tommy's on the short stack, and he's moved it all in, Vince.
Wow. He's going in with king jack offsuit. Not a tremendous hand.
Well, he only has 77,000 left. He's moved in with king jack offsuit. Paul, who has ace high, throws his hand away. He gives him respect. And now look at Chris Bigler.
Oh, yeah, he's picked up a real pair of eights, a very respectable hand, a good hand. And don't forget, he doesn't have that much money. He has a real decision to be made here.
He knows that Tommy might be on the desperate side. 2-8s is a pretty good hand. How many hands is he going to get better than that? He's going to make a decision. Does he want to play against the weak stack, the guy who may be making a move here? On the other hand, Tommy's been very conservative today. So he does have a tough decision, Vince, no doubt about it. If Chris plays this pot and loses it, he will not be out of the tournament. He will certainly be short stack, but not out of the tournament.
Of course, if Tommy loses this pot, he will be out of the tournament.
I'm all in.
He's going all in. Chris is doing it. He says the heck with it.
He's done it, and mathematically, he's made the correct play.
Chris is excited. He knows he's maybe a little bit of a favorite with a pair of eights.
Well, this is what we call a race in the poker world. It's pretty much even money. It's like a coin flip as to who's going to win.
Now, if Chris Bigler comes out on the wrong end of this hand, he is going to be crippled. If Tommy Garza, the venture capitalist, loses this hand, he'll be out of this tournament. So there's more poker to come on the World Poker Tour.
We are back in the San Francisco Bay Area at the final table of the Lucky Chances Gold Rush Tournament and smack in the middle of a race.
Absolutely. Tommy Garza, an amateur player, a venture capitalist, has put all his capital on King Jack offsuit. He is up against Switzerland's Chris Bigler, who has a real hand, a pair of eights. Let's see what happens if Tommy loses his hand. It's going to be a long walk back to Silicon Valley. Let's take a look.
We're racing.
Okay.
And Chris Bigler has 2-8s. 2-8s versus King Jack.
And here we go.
And the flop
Oh, bad beat for Chris so far.
Tommy Garza has
Big one for Tommy. Tommy's hit the kings.
The turn card is a deuce.
There's still an 8 in the deck.
Chris Bigler needs an 8. He's got a 2-outer. Otherwise, Tommy will double up. And Tommy Garza wins that race, what we call a race in poker. 2 overcards against a lower pair.
Tommy Garza has doubled up.
He extends his arms and cheers for himself. He's happy to win a pot. You're always happy when you double up. Chris might be wondering, well, why? How could he play that hand? It reminds me of the line from the Cincinnati Kid. And certainly Tommy looks like Everett G. Robinson.
He does. What's the line?
The kid lost a pot to the man and asked him, how can you play that way? And the man said to him, you paid to play, lessons are extra.
You know, I got a feeling Edward G. Robinson said that a lot better.
Yeah, I think he did too. Antonio will be the first to act here.
That's Tommy's chip total.
Antonio picks up a king 9 and dumps it. Tommy dumps a king deuce offsuit. Paul throws away a 10-4 offsuit.
Chris Bigler going all in.
He moved all in. Now, he might still be steaming from the pot before that. This is what Vince has got to figure out. Vince has an ace-9. He saw the last hand that he just lost. He's going for his chips here.
He's not going to do it this time. He's going to let Chris take it.
I'm a little surprised by that, I got to tell you. I would think Vince would have picked up. He's steaming.
Now look at Phil. Phil is hanging in there.
Now, Phil say count it up. Now, Phil's only got an 8-7 offsuit. He's going to try to add up now to see if it's mathematically correct to try to outdraw him here, to double him up.
Now, what's kind of interesting, maybe Phil picked up on something, that Chris Bigler is emotional right now, kind of steaming, and even though he has a marginal hand, he's actually considering it coming in.
He's doing the math. Is this hand worth 2 to 1 to call? That's what he's getting on it, and that's what Phil was trying to figure out.
Well, the great instincts of Phil Hellmuth kind of knew that Chris was a little weak there, but he still said it wasn't worth it. Now Chris is taking that pot. It's always nice to pick up a pot, especially when you don't have the rocks, the best hand.
I started playing poker in 1997.
I'm raising under the gun.
That was my first time in my life I played poker. I didn't even know what the full house was before 1997.
Well, the action's on Paul Darden to start with. He's in first position with the Jack-6 of spades.
Paul has
Not a good hand. He folds his cards.
Chris has 96.
And Chris has the 4-7 of spades. And he mucks his hand.
287,000.
And Vince has the 10-6 of hearts. All these little suited cards. And here comes Phil Hellmuth on the button. Now look what he has, a 3-deuce offsuit, the worst hand you can have just about. Looks like he's going to raise on the button with this miserable nothing hand.
Well, like you said, he's in a good place. He saw the people before him going out. He thinks maybe I can steal this with a junk hand.
And look at Antonio with the Queen-5 he's got. He sees Phil's raise this pot 50,000. Boy, is he out to get Phil or what here? How can he be playing a Queen-5, calling a raise here?
I don't know. He's maybe picked up on something like he thinks Phil might be bluffing here. I don't know how he picked that up.
Phil's trying to have his game face on here, but I'm not sure it's going to affect Antonio here.
Sure, staring him down. Look at Phil.
If he's thinking about playing a Queen-5 over the top of Phil here, you must think that he knows something about the way Phil's playing. Look at this. Look at Antonio moving all in on Phil Hellmuth with a Queen-5.
Okay, that's
what
poker.
A bold move by Antonio here.
That's poker. That's great poker.
And now, let's look at Tommy's hand.
And he has ace-queen.
My goodness, now it's been raised and re-raised, which automatically generally shrinks an ace-queen into a fold position. But Tommy doesn't have that many chips. He's going to have to play for all his money. He'll be out of the tournament if he's wrong here.
Look at Phil Hellmuth. Devastated that he's been re-raised. He's no longer looking at Antonio's goatee.
Every time Phil Hellmuth is raised on the button, they come back over the top of him. It's putting him in a little stew here. But this time, Antonio came over the top with a Queen-5, Vince. I'm telling you, this is poker. He has a feel for Phil Hellmuth like you can't believe. What a read he's put on this man. He's done it exactly right if he gets Tommy out, and Tommy's folded this pot. And we know Phil's not going to call with a 3-deuce offsuit. Look, Antonio shows the Queen-5. He showed him a Queen-high here.
He's rubbing it in.
Look at Tommy's look. Tommy had ace-queen, and Phil had nothing, of course. But just the idea that he would show him the Queen-5, it's going to stir up a hornet's nest here now. Here we go to the next hand. The action's on Vince Burgio. Vince has a 10-5 offsuit and folds. Phil with a 7-3 offsuit folds. Antonio also with a 7-3 offsuit folds. And now we're on Tommy on the button.
And this is kind of interesting. Tommy has just an average king-8 offsuit, but he's thinking about raising. He senses a little weakness behind him. Everyone folded in front of him. So now he's saying, hey, maybe I could pick up this pot with a bluff.
Tommy's
and he's definitely going to raise here.
He said he's raising. He has 150,000 in front of him, remember. Also, remember, he just had ace-queen when Antonio showed the Queen-5, so I know he's steaming about that a little bit, but here he goes.
He's going all in, Mike.
Whoa, he's bet all his chips, 150,000 on a king-8 offsuit. It's not a strong hand, but he is in favorable position on the dealer button.
Yeah, he just wants to take this pot out of frustration, maybe from the last hand. But look at this. Paul Darden has picked up big slick ace-king. It's a huge hand.
It's a very big hand, and that's going to spell trouble for Tommy, I'm afraid.
Well, look at this, Paul.
And here he goes. Paul's gone in. He's called him.
Did I win two?
And Chris had Jack-10. He throws his hand away.
Tommy's got to be sickened by this when he sees
Ace-king.
King-8 for Tommy. Ace-king for Paul.
Tommy Garza, one more time, has put all his chips into the pot. Only this time it's no coin flip. He's up against Paul Darden this time. He's an underdog. Can he pull it out twice in a row, or will he be the first to go home? Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're in the thick of it right here on the World Poker Tour.
back at the Lucky Chances Casino in the San Francisco Bay Area at the finals of the Gold Rush Tournament. I'm Vince Van Patten along with Mike Sexton, and we are witnessing a man in need of a miracle.
Well, Tommy Garza is going to have to hit this flop. Otherwise, Paul Darden is going to bust him and send him home. Let's see what happens.
So Paul has the best hand. Tommy is all in before the flop. Let's see a flop, please.
Not going to help Tommy. Paul is in front with the aces.
Flop comes ace, queen, jack. Tommy can only tie this hand by catching a 10 here.
With aces. Let's see the next card.
It's a 5, no help yet.
It's a 5.
If Tommy Garza doesn't catch a 10, he will be our 6th place finisher.
He doesn't do it. It's over.
He does not do it.
Big round of applause for
Tommy Garza's out of this tournament.
Tommy Garza from Reno, Nevada. He's the CEO of a venture capital firm. He learned how to play poker from a book given to him by his wife. He's an amateur player. He's battled all the way down amongst these pro players to make this final table. It shows you what can happen in poker.
You know, I'm a gambler. I'll take a lot of chances, and sometimes they pay off, sometimes they don't.
He came into this, he put his money down, and he made a nice little profit. But that goes to show you on the World Poker Tour, anybody can go to one of these casinos and you sign up for the tournament. Just put your money down, and you have a shot at making the final table.
Okay, here we go. The action is going to be on Chris Bigler to speak first.
Chris, a real rock, a real solid player. Throws his hand in again.
Picked up the 4-8 offsuit. He's not going to call.
Nope.
Vince throws away an 8-deuce offsuit. And now here's Phil on the button against the 2 chip leaders. But it's not going to slow Phil down. He's continuing to try to raise on the button.
Not a bad play. It shows you have to be aggressive. He feels he's in a good position. He sees other guys folding in front of him. Can he push out his nemesis, Antonio?
Can I see your chips?
Antonio has come back over him almost every time, and this time Antonio has ace-9 of spade. Look at Antonio, look at Phil. I'll tell you the truth. It seems to me Antonio's got a read on Phil. Every time Phil sticks his nose in there, Antonio comes over the top of him, whether he's got a hand or not. Phil hasn't done any good staring at him. This time Phil's not looking at him at all, but I think Antonio's still got a pickup on him.
I'm all in.
What? He's going all in. Look at this.
Can you believe this? All in over the top of Phil again.
Phil leans back, absolutely devastated. Well, he knows he's been busted again.
Phil's got queen 6 of hearts. We know he's not going to call. Paul throws the jack 6 away, and Phil mucks his hand. And Phil has got to be talking to himself. I'm telling you, every time he sticks his nose in there, Antonio comes over the top of him. Antonio's the magician. He's the magic man. And right now, Phil Hellmuth is a wizard, and he's making his chips disappear.
You have a 6th sense.
And here goes Vince, first to speak. He folds. And now Phil Hellmuth is the next to act. Phil's only holding a king 5 here.
He's raising. Look at this.
Look at this. He's gone all in for $131,000. All in.
This is called frustration, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, he's moved all in with the king high.
And he's getting up. He's walking away. He doesn't want to see it.
Now look at Antonio's hand. He's got an ace-5 of diamonds.
Not a bad hand. Is he going to do it to him again?
Now, Antonio should not be handling Phil's chips. This is not proper. That's why they have a dealer.
131.
Players should never handle chips in the center of the table. That's what the dealers are for.
Anyway, you know what's kind of funny? Phil, the first time he stares down Antonio. Didn't work. The second time he puts his hand over his mouth. Didn't work. And now he's just getting up. He makes his bet. He gets up and he's walking. He's going to try until it works.
He's taking a walk this time. And Antonio looks like he's thinking about calling with an ace-5. Can you believe this? Well, he wants to play. He wants to take him out.
His instincts have been right all day.
He just wants to knock him out. He's knocked him down 6 times. He wants to knock him out. He finally folds. And now Paul, he folds. And now we're over to Chris Bigler. Now Chris is on the short stack. He's in the big blind. He's picked up an ace-3 here.
Okay, not even as good as Antonio's hand.
He sees Phil's been on a little bit of tilt here. He's desperate for chips himself, but this is a tough call with ace-3 here.
This is amazing. He's even thinking about it, but he might be picking something up on Phil also. I think if Phil loses this, he's going to keep walking.
Look, he's going for it.
He's going to do it.
He's going for it.
And that's a great read.
Oh, ace-5.
More chips.
It's ace-high against king-5 here. What a call by Chris Bigler right there. He thought the ace-high was good. It, in fact, was good. And Phil Hellmuth has got to be in a buzz. He's got to feel like a punching bag.
Yeah, he's feeling toyed with today.
But in the meantime, he hadn't lost this pot yet.
No, and look
Flop
at this.
comes 10-7-6. 10-7-6. No help for Phil. Chris doesn't have to have any help. Phil needs a king or a 5. And ace comes off. Phil Hellmuth is drawing dead now. There's no card that can come off for him to win the pot. He knows it.
How much you have there?
85.
I'll tell you, this day is a total nightmare for Phil Hellmuth. He has not done one thing correct today. He hadn't picked up any hands, that's for sure.
Well, Mike, Phil Hellmuth was drawing dead there, and that's just one of the many poker terms that seems a perfect fit here in Colma. Our Shauna Hyatt has more.
This is a dead man's hand. He doesn't know it, but he's drawing dead.
What's a card club doing in the cemetery capital of California? Consider the possibilities. Are you a player with little chance to win? You're dead money. Your card's ruled no longer playable? That's a dead hand. If you can't possibly win, you're drawing dead. Listen, it's okay. Chip in a chair, chip in a chair. If you only play the best possible starting hands, you are a rock. A laydown is a tough decision to fold a strong hand.
I get there and I give it up.
There is one big difference, though. In a card club, it's the lucky players that cash in their chips.
Okay, the action is on Antonio. And he folds his hand. And Paul, with a 6-3 of hearts, folds his hand. Chris folds a 9-3 offsuit.
Look at this, Vince Bergio's going all in with the Jack-10, has to take a stand, and Phil Hellmuth is calling him quickly with a nice hand, pair of sevens.
A very close hand.
Ace, queen,
flop
three,
comes ace,
spades.
queen, 3.
Still does have a
This
spade.
means Vince will need a jack, a 10, or a king to eliminate Phil Hellmuth from this tournament. A 6 comes off on the turn. So far, Phil's looking good. He's got to dodge a king, a jack, or a 10 to double up and stay alive.
It's a 7.
And he does it. He catches a third 7. He didn't have to do it. Phil Hellmuth is doubled up. He's back in the hunt, and that puts Vince Bergio on the low stack.
Absolutely, Mike.
Okay, next hand. Now that puts Vince on the short stack with about 30,000. Phil's got almost 100,000 again. And Paul's the first to speak here. Paul throws his hand away at 8 queen. Chris folds away a deuce queen off suit.
There goes Vince. Out of frustration, he's going all in.
He's only got 31,000. He's almost obligated to play. He has an 8-9. He knows he's got to get lucky here. Now here's Phil Hellmuth.
Now Phil has a king 10, different suits, and he's going to do it. He's going to go all in with them.
Now notice what he did here. It's a very professional play, is that he moved all in. He's trying to shut Antonio out of this pot. He wants to play heads up for that 31,000 with Vince. He doesn't want Antonio to get involved in this pot. So he has raised it to try to shut him out, but he can't do it.
Look at this. Antonio has a pretty decent hand. He has ace 8 of clubs.
Ace 8 of clubs for Antonio.
Antonio picked up on his move perfectly there, Vince. He called him with the ace 8 of clubs. He could take 2 players out in one blow. If they both go out on this hand, Phil would get the 4th place finish and Vince the 5th because Phil started the hand with the most money.
It's going to be a luck match, and look who got lucky.
Is king, 9,
Phil Hellmuth
3.
picked up a pair of kings. He's in
Sure
front
has.
so far.
Vince flopped 2 9s. Phil Hellmuth flopped 2 kings.
That's 2 pair. Look at Phil.
And
He's done it. He's 2 pair. That looks real good. He still can get outdrawn with Vince, but he's a big favorite right now.
Vince has to catch a 9 to stay alive, or he's out, and he's out. Phil Hellmuth has more than doubled up. He's now picked up $225,000 by winning this pot. He got lucky finally and won a pot.
Vince Bergio walks away, slinks off into the night behind the curtains. Poor Vince.
I just never found anything to play back or anything. This is a bad card day.
Well, you can't win without cards, and no one knows that better than Vince Bergio. We're down to our final 4 players. One of these guys is going to take home $146,000 in cash, plus that coveted $25,000 seat into the World Poker Tour Championship event. And you're watching great action right here on the World Poker Tour.
This is the World Poker Tour. Here at the Lucky Chances Casino near San Francisco, poker pro Vince Bergio and venture capitalist Tommy Garza have been sent to the sidelines. Now, only 4 players remain.
We're down to the final 4. First place is almost $150,000, plus a seat in the Bellagio final of the World Poker Tour event. The action's on Phil here. Phil has a jack-deuce offsuit and folds. And Antonio is on the button.
Antonio says raise.
And he's going to raise it with a king 10 offsuit, Vince.
Yeah, well, with 4 players, you got to play even more aggressive, and this is not a bad play by him. It's not a great hand, but it's the right move.
Correct. I don't blame him for raising as well as things have been going for him. He's in position.
But look at this. Now look at this. Paul Darden has a real huge hand, ace-queen of spades. This is serious stuff. Look how serious he's getting. Doesn't know how to play it yet. Here he goes. He's going to raise it, of course.
He said he's raising. Let's see how much he raises. Remember, Antonio came in for $52,000. He's raising to $200,000 more.
200,000.
200.
Chris throws away a queen 5 offsuit.
Now you talk about player's image. Antonio has watched Paul play all afternoon and realized he hasn't played many hands. So you got to respect that. When he comes back with a re-raise, you got to say, hey, this guy has a real hand. I'm in second place. Do I want to gamble?
And look at Paul. I love his temperament at the table. He's cool as a cucumber. He's been very selective, very more or less conservative today. He had a big chip lead going into the day. He still got the big chip lead because he broke Tommy out of the tournament with $150,000 of his last money. And now here he's going to pick up another $70,000 or $80,000 if Antonio lays this hand down, which I'll be shocked if he doesn't.
You're right, Mike. He has to do it. He threw it away. Paul's pressure raise did it.
That was another great play by Paul Darden. To find out more about him, let's go to our own Shauna Hyatt.
If the poker room were a schoolhouse, it would be easy to find Paul Darden. First row, first chair, eager to learn, ready to win.
I watched the great players such as Phil Hellman and Phil Ivey. I just try to follow suit. I'm a student, watching the teachers. If you really want to be good, pay attention.
And the best student in the class has no patience for the slackers in the back.
My strength is to try to play my opponent's hands, not mine, because I have my cards. My cards are easy to play. I try to put myself in their hand and play at me, so give me a little advantage.
Before he elected for poker, Paul had an entirely different career lined up.
I was promoting a lot of rap shows. I was a partner in a nightclub. And poker snatched me because I enjoy the game, and the people are nice because once you start turning tournaments, it gets to be a big family. You know, hard work is just like any and everything. It's a job. You got to play, and it'd be some disappointments, but you got to keep going at it.
Well, Paul Darden has taken a commanding lead here. He has nearly $800,000 in chips. He's our chip leader. Antonio's in second position with $350,000. Phil's in third position with $230,000. And Chris is bringing up the rear with $134,000. Chris is first to act in this hand.
Doesn't have much of a hand. He's throwing it away, of course. And look at Phil here. He's just going to call this.
Hey, look at this, Vince. He's changed his style. So far, he's raised every time on the button. That's failed miserably. Now he's going to try a new tactic. He's just limping in on the button.
Okay, so he's in a great position, but he's just calling, limping in, as you say. He's just calling it. Very interesting.
Now here's Antonio with a 3-5 offsuit. He's calling 10 more thousand.
Now, he was already invested. He already had a little money in, so now he just puts a little more, and he can see a flop.
And Paul with the king 4.
Okay, seeing as they want to see a flop, let's see one.
He said, let's see a flop.
Who's going to get lucky?
Flop comes king 10-6.
Flop comes king 10-6.
Antonio quickly checked.
That helps Mr. Darden with a pair of kings now. He's betting it.
He bet $60,000. He flopped the top pair. He's got 2 kings.
Look at Phil with his money out, counting it up. He's going to do something here.
He's counting out a lot of chips. He's trying to see how much money he has. He's got about $210,000 left.
Look at this. Playing with his chips. He doesn't mind anybody waiting here. He's just going to take his good old time.
And he folds his
hand.
hand.
He folds.
And Antonio folds. And Paul picks up another pot. Phil had second pair. Give Phil credit. A great laydown on his part.
Earlier this season, Phil Hellmuth placed third in Aruba and just missed making 2 other WPT final tables. For most, that's pretty impressive. But for Phil Hellmuth, you don't just get close. You're supposed to win.
And I haven't been playing my style for a while, so it's been 6 months of kind of, not much great's been happening. And now, all of a sudden, through mistakes I've made the last 2 weeks, and I figured some stuff out. Phil, you're doing this wrong and this wrong. Nip it in. and let's play some poker. I just need to focus on winning.
And a focused Phil Hellmuth can be an intimidating opponent with an incredible feel for the game.
I mean, come on, I know when people are lying. People can't hide. People want to hide, like Chris Ferguson wants to have hair over his face and a hat way down and sunglasses on. I can still look down underneath Chris Ferguson's hat, and I'm going to get some clues. I mean, I'm a profiler. Why did they make this bet? Why do they have this look on their face?
How much you got left?
Why did they say this? Why did they say that? Boom, another card's come off. And all this information adds up to one key decision that I have to make. Boom, 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 boom. Information from me, boom, make the right decision. The last 3 big tournaments that I played in, I had a vision of who the person was that was going to win it. 3 out of 3 times I didn't see myself win it. 3 out of 3 times it was the person I saw win it. This time, I didn't see any of the other 5 win it. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, Phil sure got his work cut out for him here today.
4 players left. Paul Darden is a massive chip leader with nearly 900,000 in chips. Antonio second with about 300, Phil third with about 200, and Chris is in last position with about 100, so he's going to have to make a move quickly here. Now notice Antonio just folded a king-queen, Vince.
Now that is kind of surprising. In a 4-handed game, he's just throwing it away. Now it makes it up to Paul. Now Paul got to see that Antonio was throwing his hand. He has a, let's see, he has a 4-ace in his hand. Whenever you have an ace in a 4-handed game, it's a pretty good hand, and he's going to raise it.
Well, he's the big chip leader. He's playing against the 2 blinds now. He's got ace high. He raises the pot. He comes in for 200,000, meaning both Chris or Phil are going to put all their chips in if they play this pot. Paul Darden has given him no breathing room. There's no air. There's no mercy. This is power poker at its finest.
You got Chris Bigler sitting there. He's considering this with an ace-6. Now, he is a rock. He usually likes to play, real conservative. But do you see how even he has to loosen up here and change gears to make it work for him?
And here he goes. He's going for it.
He's doing it. What a great, interesting call. Phil folds. What are we going to see here?
We've got ace-6 offsuit for Chris, ace-4 for Paul.
Now, there's a good chance this could be a split pot before it's over.
9.
It comes ace-jack-9, which means both players have a pair of aces, and they're going to use the jack and the 9 and the 10 kicker. So right now there's going to be a split pot unless a 6 or a 4 comes up.
Give me another club. I want to chop it.
Notice Chris could have won if a club comes up there. So he had the flush draw also. Now what's amazing about this pot is, remember Phil folded a jack-8, he would have made jacks and 8s. Antonio folded a king-queen, he would have made the best straight possible.
On the board.
Both of the 2 guys that folded out of the 4 would have won the pot had they played. As it was, Chris and Paul split the pot. Chris stays alive in the competition with 4 left.
Well, you see some really aggressive poker here now. You see, if you have an ace in anything, it's time to raise. That's how you have to play. You have to play real fast when it comes down to the last 4.
The action is on Paul Darden, our big chip leader at the moment. Paul doesn't have a good hand. He folds.
Paul folds.
Chris Bigler has a 9-5 offsuit, and he's going to fold. And now it's the battle of the blinds. Our 2 young aggressive tigers, the ones that are battling each other hard.
Well, Phil's going all in like he should. He has a pretty good hand, king-jack offsuit, 2 different suits. He's going all in against his nemesis, Antonio.
Now, Antonio's sitting on 300,000. He has him covered. If he calls and plays and wins this pot, he will knock Phil Hellmuth out in 4th position.
It's amazing, too, is that he has king-queen. He has a better hand. What's he going to do?
Well, we can see he's in a dominating position right now, but if you're sitting at the table, if you don't know Phil Hellmuth's hand and a guy moves in for you for 200,000 and you're looking at king-queen, it doesn't look that big, especially when you only have 300,000 in chips. This is the ultimate test for Antonio the Magician right here.
Kid, I'm rooting for you to call. Got to be honest with you.
Phil cracks me up because he doesn't know what to do against Antonio, his nemesis, who's been beating him all day. He doesn't know whether to stare at him, get up at the table. Now he's starting to talk to him. Desperate men are doing desperate things, and that's what Phil is doing right now.
Well, so far, Antonio has been in perfect step today. Looks like the Ohio State Marching Band. Hasn't missed a step, hasn't missed a beat. Will he make the correct decision here and call with this king-queen? Let's see what he does here against Phil Hellmuth.
I'm rooting for him to call. I just hope he doesn't outdraw me.
Ooh.
Listen to that. Now, Phil actually made that statement thinking he has the best hand.
A little table talk, a big smile.
He really believed that Antonio would have called already had he could beat the King Jack. But just look at the beauty of this World Poker Tour, Vince. Because we can see their cards, we see the excitement, the electricity here, the problems, the decisions these players have to make. He does it.
Phil is devastated.
Here he goes. Look at Phil. It's heartbreak for him when he sees that hand.
Oh, no.
It's King Queen versus King Jack. What a call by Antonio here. Phil Hellmuth knows he's in big trouble now.
Well, we've got a battle on our hands here at another huge WPT tournament. Don't go away.
We are back at the finals of the Lucky Chances Gold Rush Tournament, and right now Phil Hellmuth, the poker great, is in a world of trouble.
Yeah, well, Phil wants to win so bad he can taste it.
Phil Hellmuth knows he's going to have to get lucky to win this pot.
No, not yet. Big favorite Antonio is still in front after 3 cards. Let's see the next one. Nope, it's not going to do it for Phil.
Phil Hellmuth needs a jack or he will be out of this tournament in 4th position.
Phil needs a jack now to stay in. Let's see the last card.
And a queen comes up at the river. Antonio wins the pot. He knocks out the legendary Phil Hellmuth.
Antonio's done it. The arms are raised up above.
Show some class and shake my hand, kid. No, don't do the wave in that face. I always do the wave now.
Our former world champion is history.
He is crushed.
This has not been Phil Hellmuth's day. There's no question about it. He never caught any cards. Every time he tried to pick up a pot, they played back over the top of him. Tremendous poker player, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, no-limit poker player in the world. He finishes in 4th place today with $34,000.
He was outplayed. He was outwitted. And he's walking behind the curtain trying to get the heck out of town.
It's very disappointing. I couldn't believe that Antonio had King-Queen that last hand. I mean, on top of all the bad luck that I have, for him to show up with King-Queen in the big blind when I had King-Jack, you know, very frustrating day for me.
Phil Hellmuth finishes in 4th place. He'll now have plenty of time to check out the Lucky Chances Casino and the rest of the San Francisco Bay Area.
Well, like jump off that Golden Gate Bridge. And our Shauna Hyatt's been taking a look around town, too.
In the mid-19th century, if you wanted to try your luck in the #1 spot to gamble in the U.S., you first had to go west, young man, all the way to San Francisco.
150 years after the first golden age, Lucky Chances Casino opened just south of San Francisco and continues the tradition of offering the biggest and the best action the Bay Area has to offer.
The people in the Bay area here, they love poker.
Full house, baby! It's terrific. It's a terrific little casino.
We have a wide variety of poker games. We play 7-card stud, Omaha, Texas Hold'em, anywhere from a 3-6 limit to a $1,000 buy-in no-limit game.
Every Wednesday and Friday we have live no-limit games, 10, 10, 20 blinds with a $1,000 buy-in. What that means is, at any one time, you can lose all of your chips on one hand. People buy into that game for $10,000 on a regular basis. What do they like about Lucky Chances? The staff. The staff here is very friendly. We have very professional dealers, some of the best in the industry. The food's been good too.
So if you're ready to try your luck in a casino that has history on its side, here's some advice. Go west.
There's certainly a lot of history here in the Bay Area.
Absolutely, and that includes half of the final table. Phil Hellmuth, Vince Bergio, Tommy Garza, their history.
Well, let's get back to the action with Chris Bigler on the button.
And he goes all in.
Here goes Chris Bigler all in on the button with a Jack-10 offsuit.
Okay. Now, that goes to show you, that's how you got to play. You're down to 3 players. You have a Jack-10, you push it. Everything.
Well, he's got 115,000 is all. And here comes Antonio. Antonio has 2 7s in this pot. And he's going to play with him.
Yeah, I don't blame him. He's going to play that real quickly.
Antonio calls. It's likely that Paul will get out of their way, and he does. This is 2 7s against the Jack-10 offsuit. The 2 7s are a very slight favorite to win this pot. I think Chris did the right thing by moving in there, and I think Antonio did the right thing by calling.
So Antonio's a little bit of favorite. Here we go. He's still in front with the pair of 7s.
Chris is going to need a Jack or a 10. And he spikes a 10. Chris Bigler has caught a 10 on the turn.
That's
now
a
Antonio's got to have a 2-outer.
an 8. So
He
Chris
does
won't
not
double.
get it. Chris Bigler has doubled up with a Jack 10. He got lucky on 4th Street there to outdraw Antonio. It's the first bad break Antonio's had today.
And it happens so quick. Just a turn of the card can change your life.
Chris happened to get lucky and win the pot. We still have a 300 race. Things are starting to look up for Chris Bigler, and as Shauna found out, that's a welcome change.
Chris Bigler goes the extra mile to play poker. From his home in Switzerland, he's traveled to WPT events all over the world. But his trip to San Francisco has been the wildest one yet.
On Wednesday, I played the major event of the tournament, the leader tournament in Amsterdam. I got knocked out on Wednesday night, so I took the early flight Thursday to Los Angeles. And from LA, there was a delay to go into San Francisco because of the bad weather. The whole trip from LA to here took me 8.5 hours. After that, I couldn't sleep very well, so I came here, played poker, played a tournament, made the final table. The next night I had only three hours sleep, and then I played the tournament yesterday till 5 in the morning. But I feel good. I gotta win this today.
And all this from a guy who's retired.
I had a computer software business, and that computer software business I sold. So I'm kind of a retired business person, but I play tournament poker full-time now. Full-time means I still live in Switzerland. There's no poker in Switzerland, no real serious poker in Switzerland.
And not jet lag, air sickness, sleep deprivation, or culture shock is going to throw this world traveler off track.
I like what I'm doing. If you're successful in something, you enjoy it. And I enjoy being successful in things. I was successful in business, I'm successful in poker. I'm good. I feel good.
Well, Chris just doubled up there. He's got over 250,000 in chips now. He's feeling good. Antonio folds on the button.
Raise. 70.
Now look at this. Paul is raising it up. He has an ace in his hand. He's raising it up.
Raise.
I'm all in.
And Chris is going over the top and re-raising with a Jack King.
Look at this, a bold play by Chris Bigler here to come back over the top with the King Jack offsuit. Now we know Paul has the best hand with ace high, but Paul doesn't know it. He's put to the test here. This is a tough decision for him to make. Do you want to give the guy another 180,000 in chips by calling with ace 4?
Mike is throwing it away. Paul's throwing it away.
Yeah, baby, come on.
What a beautiful re-raise.
That was a great play by Chris Bigler.
3 down, 2 to go. We'll be right back on the World Poker Tour.
You know, if you had curtains, you could probably cover the window.
Is up 6%. And if you turn to the 4th page of your book...
AbsolutePoker.com. You in?
We're at the Lucky Chances Casino for the Lucky Chances Gold Rush on the World Poker Tour. A young magician made a world champion disappear, while a retired Swiss businessman is on a roll.
Yeah, baby.
Now, back to the final table action with Mike Sexton and Vince Van Patten.
Chris will be the first to act here.
Now look at this. Look at this. He picked up a big hand, a pair of jacks in his hand, and he is going to raise it. Puts his little lucky charm on his cards. Let's see how much he raises.
Raise.
So he's come in for 70,000. Now this is a relatively small raise here. He's only raised at 50,000. 70,000 he comes in for. And look at Antonio now. He's got a 4-5 here, Vince.
Yeah, he's got a terrible hand.
Why 70, Chris? Last time it was 100. What's going on?
Last time I had a better hand.
Last time you had a better hand?
It's a curious raise. Now it's 50,000 to Paul. Now Paul only has a 4 high. He's got a 4-3. He's out of position, yet he's calling the $50,000 raise.
Because you know what? He's got a 4-3, but they're of clubs. They're of the same suit. Miracles can happen. Let's see. Not a miracle this time.
Come King, Queen, 9. Doesn't look like it helped the 4-3 here.
But you know what's interesting? Chris has got to be saying, I have a pair of jacks. I hope this guy doesn't have a king or queen in his hand. And look at Paul Darden is betting in like he does have it.
Look at this. This man is betting with nothing. He has a 4 high. He bet 70,000 with absolutely nothing. Now, if you're sitting in Chris Bigler's seat with 2 jacks here, You know, 2 jacks are not that impressive when there's 2 overcards out there.
You don't like it. That's why Paul just made a brilliant play. Now, did he pick up something on Chris? Now Chris has got a big problem, and he throws the hand away.
Chris folds. Give Paul Darden a lot of credit there. He earned that pot, as we say in the poker world.
Stone cold bluff with a 3-4, just bets away. That's what you got to do to become a great player.
Vince, we're down to our final 3 players. The next guy out will get $44,000. Our winner gets $146,000.
Plus, you got to remember one thing. We only have 12 tournaments on the World Poker Tour, and if you win one of these things, you got a guaranteed seat in the World Poker Tour Championship. Well, look at this. Antonio's got a huge hand, a pair of queens in his hand, and he's raising strong.
60,000, a raise of 40.
Paul Darden has a king and a 9 of spades, a respectable hand, a pretty good hand. Got to really consider it. Look at him eyeballing Antonio. He's calling it.
He called the 60,000. He's the king 9 of spades.
Chris is throwing his junk hand away. It's down to 2 guys. Let's go see that flop. Pair of queens, a big hand in this before the flop. What's going to happen?
Flop is Jack 3.
Flop is Jack 3 deuce. This is a good flop for Antonio. He has an overpair, 2 queens.
When you say overpair, you see the board there. You see those 3 cards. The queens are a bigger pair than any of those 3 cards. That's what we mean by an overpair, and it is quite strong.
Antonio bet 70,000, and Paul with this king high lays his hand down. Antonio wins the pot.
Nice play by Antonio. He's just an amazing competitor.
Our own Shauna Hyatt has more on the man they call the Magician.
He can make your chips disappear at the poker table, but for Antonio Esfandiari, the magic in this tournament was no trick.
It was amazing last night. I was sitting in the tournament, $3,000 entry fee. It's down to 2 tables. I have Eric Settle to my left and Phil Humboldt to my right, 2 of the world's best tournament players. And I'm sitting there with all these chips, and I'm like, wow, 2.5 years ago I was playing $2, $4 limit, and now I'm playing with these 2 guys. It was a great moment. I used to be a professional magician. And then one day my roommate was going to play in a poker tournament. I'm a poker tournament. They have tournaments for poker. He's all, yeah. I'm all, can I play?
Not only could he play, but Antonio discovered a gift for poker that can't be explained.
I think I have a weird intuition of being able to read somebody when they make a big bet and follow their betting throughout the whole hand. And sometimes I just know. It even scares me.
That kind of talent can carry you far, and this final table rookie has the confidence to finish what he starts.
I'm not going to sit there and squeeze away. I'm just going to move them in. I want to go for first or second. You know, I don't want to squeeze my way into like 5th. But yesterday, my strategy was top 6. Today's going to be different.
Whatever the outcome, Antonio already has proved his skills are no illusion to the one person who really counts.
My dad never believed that poker was positive equity. He kept thinking that gambling is just bad. So I said, Dad, you have to come watch me play one day. And finally he came. He sat behind me, and I swear to you, 9 out of 10 times I called other people's hands. I was right. And he said, how did you know what he had? He just had this look on his face. And I could tell he was actually like proud of his son. So that was a good moment.
Maybe even a magic moment.
This guy is playing great poker tonight.
He sure is.
Now, Antonio's got a hand. He's got Jack 7 of spade this time, and he's raising it.
He's raised at 41,000. Jack 7 of spade, one of your hands, Vince. You like this kind of hand?
Sure I do. Paul with a Queen 5 offsuit. He threw it away.
He folds his hand. And Chris Bigler has a Jack 4 of hearts.
Look at this. He's going all in, Mike.
Whoa.
He's going all in.
Look at this. Now, is this the same Chris Bigler we saw in the first World Poker Tour event at Bellagio, the one you call the Rock of Gibraltar? Here he is raising back over the top with a Jack 4.
Well, that's interesting because you're right. He's Mr. Tight. But this shows what a brilliant player he is because he plays so tight, so solid. And now because he's down to 3 players, he changes gears and he makes a move like this. This proves to me that he's a great player.
Now, Antonio has no idea that he's holding a Jack 7 of spade over a Jack 4 of hearts.
He's throwing it away. He got Antonio to throw his raise away.
You can't call another 146,000 with a Jack 7. You just can't do it.
Now, that shows you need psychology. You need to be shifty in tournament poker.
A phenomenal play by Chris Bigler. Give him credit. He earned that pot. He is changing gears. He is playing a lot faster three-handed. Exactly what you have to do if you want to win this title. Stay tuned. We'll be right back on the World Poker Tour.
Antonio Esfandiari and Chris Bigler are battling for position, but Paul Darden remains in control for now. Can Paul hold off these hard-charging challengers? Let's get back to the final table action from the Lucky Chances Casino here on the World Poker Tour.
The action's on Chris.
It's on him. He doesn't have much of a hand. He's going to throw this one away. Now, Antonio has an interesting hand. He has King 10, different suits.
You won't do the right thing and muck, huh? Let's see a flop.
Now, Paul's picked up an ace high here, and he said give us a flop, so he didn't raise with an ace.
That's interesting.
We're going to see the flop.
No real help from either player on the flop. On Antonio first, he checks it, and now look at this. Paul's coming out of his shell. He's making a nice solid bet.
He bets just $35,000, just a small feeler bet, as we say in the trade.
Antonio chucks it.
And Paul picks up another pot. That's a nice little bet Paul made there. We're down to our final three, and you can see the intensity because all these players know they're close. They can vision themselves winning this championship.
You're absolutely right, Mike. And they're tightening up their strategy. One false move could knock them out, and they know it.
Now let's check in with Shauna Hyatt.
Is it luck or is it skill? Place your bet on this edition of the WPT Poker Corner. The Gold Rush Tournament is the biggest poker event in Northern California history. And the fact that it's held in a casino called Lucky Chances gives us the opportunity to ask the age-old question. What's poker? Is it skill or is it luck?
When you play craps, you know that on any given day, you might actually win some money. But most everyone realizes that the house always wins in the long run. The same is true for poker. The better players have what amounts to a mathematical edge over the weaker players. So sure, a novice can win for a short while.
I feel lucky, very lucky. The name, it says it all. Lucky chances, I have a chance.
There's kind of a paradox in poker, which is in the short run, there's a tremendous amount of luck. But in the long run, there's almost no luck.
Over a long period of time, of course it's skill. I mean, otherwise professional poker players couldn't survive for 15, 20, 30 years and be a winning player every year.
But if the pros are earning millions, that means there's got to be a fair share of losers. Yet the question still lingers.
Is it luck or is it skill?
You'd think the experts would have that settled. So what poker pro would be subject to a silly superstition?
No, this better work for tomorrow.
If you have something that makes you feel comfortable, I mean, you should use it.
There was a time where if I was wearing a particular necklace when things were going well, and then I didn't wear the necklace one day and I lost, I would wear the necklace the next day.
There's a certain line you don't want to cross. Wearing the same underwear for a whole week or whatever, that's over the line.
Either way, superstition couldn't possibly stand in the way of a marriage, right?
What's your husband's name?
Perry. I'm definitely bad luck because he always does better when I'm not there. I think this is as close as I want to get.
Chance, fortune, and fate. A lot of players don't believe in them and don't really care, but some fears are legitimate.
At any tournament, there's luck involved, including the luck of the draw. For example, if you were sitting at this table, you'd be playing against 3 world champions.
So I guess it doesn't hurt to bring a charm for good luck, but try to bring some skill too.
Whatever you think, one thing seems pretty clear. To win a major tournament today, you're going to need a whole lot of both.
Well, Antonio had everything going for him earlier today when there were 6 players and 5 players and 4 players, but down to 3 players, he has yet to be a force among the 3 yet. Actually, Chris is playing very well here, and so is Paul, and I think it's going to be tough for him. The action is on Antonio.
I think he wants his old punching bag back, Phil Hellmuth. You know, he can push him around, but he can't push these other guys around.
And he folds his hand on the button with the 6-jack of spade.
Not a terrible hand. I'm kind of surprised he folded that. Now he's getting a little more conservative, maybe. But look at Paul.
Here comes Paul with a Queen 7 offsuit, known as a computer hand.
Chris moves all in.
Whoa.
And look at Chris playing back over the top, all of his chips. Chris holds 2 5s. He has re-raised Paul all of his money.
Well, he's making Paul think. I mean, that's a pretty darn good hand when you have a pair of 5s three-handed. So, of course, he's got to do that. Chris has he doesn't look happy, but I mean...
Now, look at Paul staring him down. We know he's not going to call with the Queen 7 offsuit.
How much is that?
He says count the chips down. This is a little gamesmanship on Paul's part to make it indicate like he's got some kind of hand that just don't raise me because I come into a pot. Vince, they're both acting here now. Chris is trying to act like he has a good hand, as well as Paul is, because he doesn't want Chris to continue to re-raise him when he raises a pot.
Trying to rob me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at him trying to act confident. Look at Chris. Look at him doing his best Hollywood act there.
I'll let you get away with it this time.
If I wouldn't get a penalty, I would show you one.
You like a 5, huh?
I like those 5 of hearts.
Okay. Look at this. He showed him a 5. He showed him the 5. Look at this game. He's trying to get into his head. They're trying to put each other on a little bit of tilt.
The thing is, now you're down to 3-hand, and now they got to play faster.
Antonio's first to speak. He folds a Jack 5 offsuit. Paul's been raising. He's going to raise again. Now he just has a Jack deuce offsuit here. He's just trying to pick up the pot.
Like I said, when it's down to 3, you got to make your raises. You got to play more aggressive when there's less people, and that's exactly what Paul's doing. He's taking a shot here with not much of a hand.
He's raised at 64,000. Now look at Chris. Chris has a 9 high, Vince. That's all he has, 9-8.
Well, it's suited, though. I mean, that's a big difference. It's a 9-8 suited connector.
I'm all in.
Hey, he's not going to get pushed around. He's going all in.
Spoken like a Hollywood player, he's going all in.
He's going all in with a 9-8.
He's moved all over the top of Paul Darden with a 9 high. Now this is a bold play.
Paul just chucked it. It disgusted Paul.
Paul couldn't call him. He had a Jack deuce offsuit. Well, things sure seem to be going Chris's way right now. He's stacking his chips quickly. He's feeling good.
You know what's kind of interesting? You see Antonio, who, before when Phil Hellmuth was in the game, he was aggressive. I mean, it was like, it was Antonio's private poker patch. I mean, he had a picket fence around this table, and now that fence is smashed. I mean, he's not the same player, and look right here, he's picked up a King Jack. Not a bad hand.
No one has been watching these guys play a lot of pots, and he wants to get in there and play one, and he's going to do it. He's raising this pot. 100,000. Antonio has raised this pot 100,000, and Paul with 2 jacks. We certainly know he's going to play this pot.
I'm all in.
He says he's all in.
Yeah, why not? You got to go all in. He's got a terrific hand.
Antonio quickly calls. He's getting 3-1 on his money. It's hard hand to lay down. It's King Jack versus 2 jacks.
Okay, Paul has pocket jacks.
Paul Darden is a big favorite here, about 2.5 to 1 favorite to win this pot.
All in. He needs to help.
Antonio's going to have to get lucky here.
Comes 10-8 deuce.
Not going to do it yet. It's not going to help Antonio yet. Paul's in front.
An ace comes on the turn. Now Antonio has to have a king or a queen, or he will be our 3rd place finisher.
Or a queen.
These guys have been playing for 2 days, and it all comes down to this one hand.
Does the magician have a king or a queen up his sleeve? Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back to the Lucky Chances Casino here on the World Poker Tour. Okay, here's the situation. Paul Darden moved all of his chips in with a pair of jacks, and the young magician, Antonio Esfandiari, with a king and a jack, matched him. Now, Antonio needs a king to make a higher pair than Paul, or a queen to make a straight, or his rabbit is going back in the hat.
It's a 9.
It's all over for Antonio, who played so well.
Big hand for Antonio.
We'll give Antonio a lot of credit. He came from nowhere today. He commanded the table early in this tournament, the final table. When it got down to 3, he just sort of hit the wall, as we say. Nothing seemed to go right for him, but he played a brilliant tournament, a great final table, our 3rd place finisher, and he will take home $44,000. We're down to the final 2 players here at Lucky Chances Casino, and one of them is going to walk out of here with a wheelbarrow full of cash.
Now, speak of the devil, Mike, you asked for it. Here it is. Now, on the World Poker Tour, we bring out the prize, we put it on the table so these players know what's at stake.
Good job.
Got $500,000 on the table cash. It's unlike other sporting events where they give you a big fat check. You see the cash, makes it even more exciting.
Looks like one of your pots at the Hollywood Games, doesn't it? Okay, now both players put a blind in. The big blind is in front of the button. The small blind is on the button, meaning the button will act first. And here comes Paul.
Remember, that button is the dealer button. That represents where the dealer would be.
Now look at Paul. He's raised this pot with a 5-3. He has a 5 high and raised it on the button. And amazingly, Chris has called this with a 6-3 offsuit.
Pretty amazing. He calls with a 6-3. How do you do that?
Flop comes 9-9-6.
I don't know how you do it out of position. I'm not in favor of the play. Even though it's worked out well for him, the flop come 9-9-6.
Look at Looky, though. He's caught a pair. He's caught 6s and 9s. And it's not bad.
And he checks. He's opted to check it. And here comes Paul, betting the 5 high.
Paul bets 50,000.
He's bet 50,000, and Chris is raising him. Yeah. He's check raised it.
He's doing a little trap job. Chris did a little trap job. He believes he's in front with the 6s and 9s. Paul's going to throw it away.
Wow! He not only called a raise, he then check raised with the 2 6s. He is really feeling his Wheaties right now, I can tell you, to make those 2 kind of plays.
Well, they're heads up, and this Chris Bigler never ceases to amaze me. Plays tight early on in the tournament, and now he's more aggressive. He calls with a 6-3. It pays off for him. This man is very confident.
Paul is first on the button.
He's picked up a king 4 offsuit. He's just calling this time. He's not raising anymore.
So he puts in another $12,000 to make the call with a king 4. Now Chris has a queen 8 different suits. And he's saying, let's just go. I'm not going to raise it.
So we're going to see a flop here.
Flop comes queen 5.
And again, it's a good flop for Chris. He has flopped the top pair. He has a queen 8 offsuit, and he checks. Notice he checked the top pair.
Well, he likes to trap.
And Paul checks this time. He didn't go for a bet this time.
Jack.
Chris knows he's in front now. What's he going to do?
Now the jack comes on the turn. Chris leads out and bets 60,000. And Chris wins the pot. Now notice that hand that Paul Darden did not bet a pair on the flop. He flopped the bottom pair. He checked it after Chris checked. He threw the hand away when Chris bet on 4th Street. So pretty good discipline there by Paul Darden, and it did save him money.
They've got a lot of strategy here. Both players have a real shot at winning this. Paul's going to be first to act. He's got a hand. He's got Jack Queen of spades. It's a pretty strong hand, heads up. He's going to raise that. Chris has got an ace and a 5. I mean, Chris is considering this with just an ace 5. I guess heads up, you almost have to consider that, right, Mike?
Well, yeah, ace high is not a bad hand, heads up. It's another 38,000 to Chris to call. And he calls.
Yeah, he's calling.
He does call the raise, so we're going to see a flop here. It's ace 5 versus queen jack of spade. The flop comes 9-8 deuce. No help to either player.
Inside straight draw for Paul if he hits a 10.
And notice he checked. He didn't bet that draw. He's going to try to catch it for nothing. Now the 7 of spade comes off. Now that gives Paul a flush draw and a straight draw.
A lot of options. He's got to bet this strong. Look at him. Here he goes.
Paul bets 90,000.
So this time when Chris checked, Paul's going to bet because he does have a nice draw now.
Now you see, we call it on the come. He's betting on the come. He hasn't made a hand, so you make a good semi-bluff into that, and that's exactly what Paul did.
Chris will be first on the button.
Both these guys got to be tired because they had some problems traveling. Paul flew in from the East Coast last minute on a whim. In fact, he had no clothes. He had to go shopping the day before, borrow a razor so he could shave.
Well, he's styling right now. He's in the chip lead going for this tournament title.
70,000.
And here comes Chris.
Yeah, Chris has a 5 and a king.
Chris has raised 70,000.
Now, Paul has a 9 and a queen of spades. Once again, a very interesting, definite calling hand.
He's got the queen 9 of spades.
You see how these guys have to play real aggressive when your head's up.
Paul calls the $70,000 raise.
He's going to take a flop with this hand. So here we go.
This is how it happens here.
We have king high versus queen 9 of spade. That's a good flop for Chris. Paul just has a queen 9 and is let out and bet this pot.
Look at that. He's just trying to bluff this hand.
He's trying to win the pot right here in hopes that his opponent doesn't have a king. In fact, Chris does have one, and it's going to be interesting to see how he plays this hand. If he just calls it or if he raises it.
I'll raise.
Chris is going to raise the 90,000.
Everything.
He's going all in, he said.
He's going all in. He's putting it all on the line with the kings with a 9 kicker.
He's got the top pair. He's not going to take any chances on getting outdrawn here. If he's beat, he's beat. He's going to make the man beat the 2 kings. We know Paul doesn't have anything and he's not going to call this hand, but notice he's doing some acting here a little bit to act like he's got a hand.
Chris wins the pot.
And he folds.
Throws it away.
And Chris showed him the king that time. Well, with that win in that pot, Chris Bigler has now closed the gap to where we have a virtual tie for the chip lead almost. It's a very minute lead by Paul. He has $780,000, and Chris has about $730,000. Now, Vince, the difference in first and second place in this tournament is about $60,000 in cash, but more importantly is the prestige of winning the title and the $25,000 seat they get in the WPT Championship event.
And that is worth millions of dollars, so you don't want to get knocked out of this thing.
And Paul has an ace on the button here. Most players would certainly raise in a heads-up match with an ace on the button. And Paul is going to, and he's raised at $70,000.
Now look at this. Chris has an interesting hand. He has a 5 and a queen, but they're both suited. Diamonds.
But a queen 5 is not a strong hand at all. Out of position. I'll be surprised if he called this, but I was shocked a minute ago when he called a raise with a 6-3 offsuit, so anything's possible.
He's going to throw it away.
He knows he's running good, but do you want to press it that much? That's what he's saying to himself. No was the answer. He folded the hand. Paul picks up the pot.
We have 2 players left. Find out which one will take home the gold at the Gold Rush Tournament at Lucky Chances Casino on the World Poker Tour.
All right, I'm going to be asking you a series of questions, and I'd like you to answer me very truthfully. Are you a woman?
Of course I'm a woman.
He's telling the truth. He really is a woman.
Good at bluffing? Play poker online at partypoker.com. It's fun, it's easy, it's the world's largest poker room.
So, what are you doing later?
Building a shed.
We started with 6 players at the final table here at the Lucky Chances Casino. But one by one, they were eliminated. A venture capitalist, 2 poker pros, one of them a world champ, and a magician who finally ran out of tricks. Now it's a one-on-one battle between a former nightclub owner and a retired Swiss businessman. Let's see who can close the deal now on the World Poker Tour.
Welcome back to the Gold Rush Tournament on the World Poker Tour. We're down to our final 2 players in the heads-up battle for the No Limit Hold'em Championship here at the Gold Rush Tournament.
Paul Darden, Chris Bigler, going at it. Big money at stake.
The action's on Chris here. Now Chris looks at a 5-4 offsuit, and look at this. Looks like he's going to play this hand, Vince.
Well, this is great. This is why he's a great poker player. He's changing gears. He has to bluff. He's taking a stone-cold bluff.
He's raising on the button. It's a position raise. He's trying to pick up the pot in hopes Paul doesn't pick up a hand. But look what Paul's hand is.
Well, he ran into a huge hand. He's got a monster. He has that ace-king. We call it big slick in poker. Ace-king suited. Paul he's acting here. He definitely knows he's calling. He's probably going to raise.
I don't think there's any question he's going to raise it. Just a matter of how much. This is a big hand.
Raise.
He would be very happy to put all the chips in with this pot.
300,000.
300,000. This is a monster raise. He's making a large raise. Chris quickly folds his hand, of course.
Paul wins the pot.
Takes that pot home, so it shows you can't play too conservative when your head's up. Just bet it and win.
I fold a lot so far. Sometimes I smooth call and hope you don't raise.
He's just calling, acting like he's stronger than he is.
And he's calling. He's trying to see a flop.
Okay, we have
now, Paul has an 8 and a 4, equally poor hand.
Now the flop comes 8-7-3. This means Paul has flopped the top pair. Chris has flopped the second pair.
Now they got a little piece of it. Each one of them has a little piece of it.
Let's see if there's any fireworks that go on here.
$50,000 bet.
And now here's Chris with the second pair. Now Chris is in trouble this hand.
Now raise.
He's going to raise it.
Raise.
120,000 more.
He's raised it 120,000 more on the second pair.
That's a very gutsy raise. This is very interesting.
Now look at Paul. Now he's flopped the top pair, but he has a very weak kicker, as we say. He's now analyzing what could Chris have. He might have a flush draw. He could have a straight draw. He could have his 2/8 beat. He's got a tough decision here. Even though he has the top pair, he has a weak kicker. It doesn't seem like it's that strong a hand when a man raises you 120,000 after you bet. But here he comes.
Darden calls.
Paul's calling this. He has the top pair with a bad kicker.
Paul has called 120,000. That's a great call on his behalf.
Turn card is a king of clubs.
Now a king comes on the turn.
Doesn't help either player. So Paul is technically in front in this hand.
Check's good.
Okay, he's quickly checking over it.
Now it goes check, check.
Final card is a 3 of
Now the final card is a 3, so now they both have 2 pair with a king kicker. Now look at Paul. He's going to make a bet here, it looks like. This is a bold bet on his behalf.
What's he bet?
He's bet 150,000 in this spot. Chris is going to call this if he thinks the 2 7s are good. And he calls it. He does call it.
8s.
And Paul turns up the 2/8 with pretty much confidence there, like it's the best hand. And it is the best hand. Chris shows down the 2 7s. Boy, I give Paul Darden a lot of credit there. That was a bold, great value bet at the river by Paul Darden.
That's not good for Chris. I mean, that's maybe the first mistake he made. He played a little aggressively with the 7.
That pot had over 700,000 in it, Vince. A very convincing pot for Paul Darden, putting him in a commanding position now. He has like 1,300,000 in chips, as opposed to Chris's 209,000.
We're back in play, and now this is very interesting, because Paul is going to raise with a king and a 7.
He's bet 162,000.
And Chris has moved all in.
I'm not even raising. I don't even know whether I'm raising or not.
Now this is fascinating. Chris, playing the actor right now, is raising strongly. He has a huge hand. He has ace and a queen of spades.
Well, there's so much money out there, it's only going to cost Paul about another 50,000 to call. There's no way he's going to throw it away. It doesn't matter what he has here. There's about 350,000 in the pot. It's only going to cost him another 50 to call. He's definitely going to call with the king 7 and hope he gets lucky and outdraws him. He can afford the 50 more thousand. If he gets lucky, the tournament's over, and he's the champion. Let's see what happens.
Ace, queen of spades for Chris.
And Paul says, I'm live. That's all I could ask for, and he's right about that. We have ace, queen against king 7. Chris is the favorite. Let's see what happens.
Let's see a flop.
And the flop comes queen 8-3.
Big for Chris, of course. He's got his big pair of queens with an ace kicker. He looks real solid in his hand.
Come on, king.
Turn card is a
The turn card is a 4
Still
now.
in front for Chris.
Paul has to have a king, or Chris will double up.
will double up and stay in this tournament, win a big pot.
And he does it.
It's a 3.
Good.
Pumps his hands above his head there. He's excited he is back.
Well, he's got 400,000, 418,000 now. Now, what that means is, if he doubles up one more time, he will have the chip lead.
Absolutely.
So even though just 1 minute ago, he was down over 6-1 in chips, if he wins 2 consecutive pots, he will have the chip lead. That's no limit poker. That's why this is exciting. That's why anybody can win.
Well, he needed that after the last hand. Didn't play it quite so well with the 7s.
Now, there's a case that Paul made a very big raise. He made it 138,000 to go, and virtually was pot committed when Chris went all in. It cost him another 55,000, but there was 350 out there, so he overcommitted himself a little bit with that king 7, in my view. He didn't get lucky. Chris doubles up.
Well, here we go. Chris is looking at his hand. He has a king and a deuce off suit. What's he going to do?
He's on the button with king high.
He's raising it.
He's made it 80,000 more.
Wow.
He's raised this pot 80,000 more with a king deuce offsuit. Now, he did just win the last pot.
As we've seen in this tournament, he likes to play that momentum. He likes to win a pot, gets lucky with one pot, and he goes a little more aggressively with a second pot.
Now, Paul Darden is out of position with the queen 8 of diamonds, and looks like he's going to play this hand.
Well, you know, he's got those 2 suits. That's always more attractive.
He's called 80,000 more. He's got one of your suited hands, Vince, that you like.
Comes up.
Flop comes down.
And he's flopped the flush draw.
This is interesting.
I'm all in.
And he's all in.
Call.
And Darden has called.
Paul Darden has a flush draw. He checked. Chris quickly moved all in, and Paul said, I call immediately.
Why did Chris go all in? That's what I want to know.
Well, Chris had king high.
Offsuit.
He was hoping Paul would lay the hand down, of course. When Call beat him in the pot, he didn't like it.
Has a pair.
He's actually going to like seeing his hand, though, because he has the best hand with the king high.
Paul's got 4 to the flush. One more diamond, and he'll win this thing.
Either player has a pair.
Well, he can catch a diamond, he can catch a queen, he can catch an 8. He's got a lot of cards to win the pot with.
That's right.
Here it comes. There it is. The Jack of Diamonds. It's history.
He's done it.
Paul Darden is the Gold Rush Lucky Chances World Poker Tour champion. He has done it.
Oh, man.
Paul, you played magnificent poker today. Tell us how you're feeling right now.
I feel great. And I'm looking forward to winning plenty more.
Well, Paul, congratulations on a wonderful performance. Our champion at the Gold Rush Tournament, Paul Darden from Connecticut. I'm Mike Sexton saying thanks for joining us on the World Poker Tour. We'll see you next time.